The statement I'm going to make is not easy. Because if I'm transparent, there will be many who are understandably disappointed in that. And if I'm not transparent, there will be others who are disquieted within their souls. So I'm going to do my best. This past week, we were all saddened to hear of Pastor Brian's resignation. I know you feel the weight of that, as do I. His continuation as our senior pastor was not tenable. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of disagreement around that across our world, including, as some of you will have read by now, within our own board and within our own eldership. And I'm not breaking that news, it's out there. I'm just trying to summon the courage to face it. And sadly, as a result of that, it has become clear that we cannot continue in our global family as much as we love it. And so we have chosen this week to withdraw from being Hillsong Church. I want to say very clearly that I believe our interim global senior pastor, Phil Dooley, is a man of integrity, a man of wisdom, a man of capacity, and he's doing everything that he can to lead our church during an incredibly difficult situation. He needs our love and our prayers and our support and our compassion, and he has returned that back to us. And I also want to quickly say that I believe that Hillsong Church globally is filled with tens of thousands of good, godly people who love Jesus and are people of high integrity. They're all across Australia and in every one of our locations around the world, including the location that I'm speaking to here in Mesa and out across all that are associated with Hillsong Phoenix. Many of my dearest friends will continue to be pastors in Hillsong Church, including Pastor Gary Clark, that I count among my dearest circle of friends. And there are many reasons why we can't continue, and I'll unpack them for a few moments. Chief among them is our loss of confidence in the global board to continue leading us as a congregation. And I understand there are a lot of questions. My inbox has been full over the last couple of days with both in support and questions. And as I look through the questions, most of them fall into two categories. Category number one, why are we taking this action? Category number two, why is this so urgent? Why couldn't we just wait and see what happens? First, why are we taking this action? Over the past year, following the sin that was exposed in Hillsong Church, New York City, and the subsequent investigation that was conducted into sexual misconduct and into financial misappropriation, I encourage the results of that report to be made in some general form. I understand the sensitivity of that. I ask that the report be redacted so names could be protected. I ask that the report be synopsized so that we could embrace accountability and transparency. And for whatever reason, that request was denied. As information began to leak out as to what was in the report, and as the global board made the decision to increase financial controls within the churches, lead pastors were suddenly asked to sign NDAs and non-competes. Some of us couldn't do that in good conscience. And this has played out in recent weeks. It came down in recent weeks to the demand that we sign non-disclosure agreements and non-competes, meaning that if we were removed from our positions, we could not plant churches again within our community for at least 1 year. Last Saturday, after months of trying to gain approval to reseat our local board, we formally requested the release of our church back to us. Specifically, that simply meant the release of our church to be governed by a local board and also to include a couple of non-Hillsong pastors who are wise and credible and have proven ministries to also be seated on our local board for the sake of accountability by non-vested pastors who have nothing to lose by speaking truth to power. Further, we also ask for our governance to be reseated and we asked to continue under the label and banner of Hillsong Phoenix, which is exactly how we operated in 2016 and 17, in which we had our own board, our own governance, and we had outside pastors speaking into us. But in 2017, there was a global restructuring. We spoke about it at the time. We had concerns about it at the time. We were clear with it in our financial annual disclosure meetings at the time. And in the course of the global restructuring, our governance was reassigned along with our corporation, along with our church. We wanted to continue by returning governance and accountability, but even continuing with the banner Hillsong Phoenix for many reasons, including our love, our deep love for Hillsong College. Sadly, the board refused our request. And I was told this past week, it is, quote, all or nothing, close quote. We either had to allow the global board to govern our church and to own our properties, or we had to leave. And so with great sadness, I chose to leave. I've spent the week in council with pastors. I've run this sermon that I'm sharing with you today through a multitude of pastors, asking for their input, for their wisdom, for their accountability. And even with that, I want to say today, I am heartbroken. When we began this journey and many, many years ago as a Hillsong Network Church, and then in 2012 and 13, we were invited to become Hillsong Family, and me leaning in, me saying, make us Hillsong Church. And in 2016, when that was announced and my dream was realized, I never thought I would be standing here today. I do want to mention three things to you. It's prescient. At the time, I didn't know it, and it just seemed natural. You know how those things in your life, you do things and you don't even know in the moment what they mean. But when we were in the conversation about becoming Hillsong Church, I sat with Pastor Brian and Pastor Gary Clark in California, and we had the conversation, and I've reminded both of them in recent days. And in the conversation, there were three things that Judith and I put on the table. We said, we're not signing a prenuptial agreement. We're just simply saying these are three commitments, qualifications, restrictions that we need back from you. Number one, Judith and I are called to Phoenix. And we understand how things change in the world. We understand that if we sin, if we fail in our leadership, we can and should be removed from leading. But that's one thing. On the other hand, we also understand how it is that pastors get reassigned. And we're not open to being reassigned under any conditions, because Jesus called us to Phoenix, and Jesus has to call us away from Phoenix, because we will stand before Jesus one day, and we will give an account to Jesus one day as to whether we stayed faithful to the calling. The second qualification was we were invited to come under Hillsong, California, and to become an extension campus. We said, as much as we love the youthful leadership in California, that isn't what we're called to do. We are called to be lead pastors in Phoenix. And number three, I said, what is our plan for succession? Pastor Brian says, well, we don't have one. We have a catastrophic plan. If something goes horribly wrong, then Gary Clark is to become my successor in the interim. But as a matter of planning, we're not there. I have years of leadership ahead of me. And so I said, Pastor Brian, based on that, because I'm here to follow you, you're my friend, I've looked to you, based on that, when you step aside, you retire, you move into another position, we want to reevaluate our continuation as Hillsong Phoenix. Now, with that in place, what I said a moment ago remains true. Even during the course of events, we wanted to continue. But I do think that bears putting some of this in context, the bigger context and the bigger narrative, in the attempt to be transparent with you. And we have now reached this moment of his resignation most unexpectedly. Why is this matter so urgent? I want to be clear, it's not because of the documentary that has been released this week, however horrible that may be. I haven't seen it. I'm not here to comment on it. But we knew that was coming, and this is not because of that. It's not because we don't believe in extending grace to those who sin. I didn't expose what has been exposed before the world. I didn't expose what has been exposed before the world. I have given details to help you understand my state of mind and leadership, but I didn't expose any of that. Our heart is not to expose. Our heart's to lead with clarity, and we believe in extending grace to those who sin. And it's not because we love those who are involved any less than we have always loved those who are involved. This conversation simply started with a return to governance back at the local level and to establish some extra local pastors who are credible resources to protect our church from scandals, from lawsuits, and from the potential loss of what we have built together. I have been committed to protecting us spiritually and legally from everything that has taken place, everything that is taking place, and everything that may be discovered in the future. That is the bottom line.